David and Lori brought their baby to church for the very first time. And the whole place celebrated the joy of their new birth. Little Angie had not been a Christmas baby, but she had come close. People just marveled in all the customary ways as they usually do about babies in church. Tiny they are when they are so new. And it was too soon to attribute their features to mom or dad, but everyone tried anyway. And we learned that mom was doing fine, and there were all the usual interactions about, all of the nighttime schedules with babies. Then I took the pulpit for the reading of the gospel for this Sunday. And I was struck by the sudden familiar nature of the event in our lesson for today. In today's lesson, wherein Simeon and Anna greeted the newborn Jesus by the suddenly familiar nature of the events in the Passion, or in our lesson for today. Most parents here today can identify with David and Lori, and that helps us to truly identify with Mary and with Joseph and the baby Jesus. We can appreciate the delightful effect of a baby on all the older members of a congregation, not accustomed to having children around them as much as they would like to have. We understand what a heartwarming effect it can have upon the older folks in a congregation when a baby is around them. Now, Simeon and Anna would naturally treasure the opportunity to enjoy the baby Jesus. Babies and children are a wonderful blessing in the daily life and routines of persons, especially in nursing homes. Residents there, especially amongst any of the elderly persons, anywhere. One cannot help but enjoy the feeling of welcome relief that seems to just come over these older people when they see a child there amongst them. For some, it is easy to imagine that the feelings are those that are raised by all of the memories of their own children and their own grandchildren. One's own family, if one has one, may live far too far away to visit very often when they're in the nursing home. And any young visitor, well, they're such a welcome reminder of the extended family that is no longer able to come and to see you very often. And that's a part of daily life that would be so refreshing to them. For others, it may be the memory of their own childhood as they were growing up. Each young visitor, no matter the specific circumstance, brings to mind to all of us the hopes of life that have been lived, and especially all the joys from our younger years that we remember. Babies are often a welcome symbol of the enjoyments and the blessings that have occurred all along the way in our lives. Any baby represents the hope and the promise of life, even more so as we grow older. That's what is so hopeful about births and about baptisms. It's not just that we are grateful to God for a healthy new baby delivered to all of us by a healthy mother. We're so thankful for the future that is represented by these precious and promising lives as it draws in all of its new breaths. It is not only that we rejoice with the families as a little life is brought into our congregation and shared with us, sacrament of initiation into the community of faith, almost as much as the one who is being baptized does. We need such a reminder that we are still a part of a fellowship of those who by God's grace know the life of faith. It's a sacrament of renewal and of rebirth that gives us hope for our future as well. Now, Simeon and Anna, they might even have commented in some of the more familiar ways that we always hear when babies are around. Oh, how old is he? Or how old is she? 8 days? Oh, he has his father's nose. I think that's the way this sort of thing might go when a baby's around. You know it. In a more significant way, though, this was not the customary event recorded here. How surprised Mary and Joseph would be when this frail and ailing Simeon rose up to the occasion and he proclaims their son the Messiah. With a burst of energy that he has been saving for years and years, Simeon announces to all who were present there that day that his life is now fulfilled. God has finally fulfilled our salvation. This was the Messiah. This is the baby. And then, as if all that wasn't enough for any mom and dad, Anna came forward with her own contribution to this occasion. With the congregation already feeling and reveling over the words of Simeon, they were about to hear still more from Anna. Of course, everyone knew about Anna. She was sort of a mixed blessing in the church. Ultra pious, somewhat eccentric. She was known for her confusing outbursts, the sort that were hard to sometimes figure out. If she made any sense at all, you weren't sure if it was prophetic and profound, or whether it was just pathetic and something to be enjoyed. But Anna virtually lived in the temple, and just about as many people as thought her to be a nuisance also took very seriously her religious ramblings. This time Anna seemed remarkably serious. There was a strange weaving of joy and foreboding in her as she too became captivated by this baby Jesus. She spoke as if she knew everything about him. And Mary and Joseph were astonished. The last few months have been more mysterious than they could have ever understood if they were starting, but they were beginning and starting to appreciate all of it. It was all so astonishing. Maybe what Simeon and Andrew said helped them. And maybe it would make the parents confused even more and more complicated their lives. There had been those conversations, you remember, with the angels. Then there were the visits and the worship of the shepherds. And now there was this. Soon there would be these astrologers who were traveling from the east, and things would be taking on even a global proportions. For now, all they could do was to simply marvel at everything that was happening. The holy parents would come to need these messages in the years to come. Because after a hasty middle-of-the-night departure from Egypt, staying out of evil sight for a long time, things would return to normal in Nazareth. Jesus' childhood would seem quite ordinary. Except for that strange event when the preteen Jesus would get lost there in the temple, there in Jerusalem, and then he would scold his parents for not getting it. Others, than perhaps an occasional incident like that, there would be very little between his birth and his public ministry to remind Mary and Joseph about the destiny of the child. But how did all of these people know this? A willing mother, a trusting husband, simple shepherds, traveling wise men, warnings and dreams, and now this, Simeon and Anna. How did they know who he was and why? And perhaps it was their willingness to look upon this baby Jesus with an eye of faith. Maybe that is what has to make the difference in us. What separates this birthday celebration from the festivals of all the other children all over the world who were born? Except that this child must be seen through the eye of faith. The entire human race looks to this baby with the eye of faith. And all those who surround the newborn child in those first days, weeks, and months, they had to be open, receptive, and even eager to see things through the eye of faith. The spiritual point of view always has the potential of making important things surface more significant than they seem. And with this eye of faith, what we may have perceived as significant, it really takes on an even more important role. And so it was for Simeon and Anna. They were open, receptive, watchful, patient, and eager. They expected the communication of holy things. They were waiting and wondering. They then were so faithful that they believed that they saw it. For Simeon, think of all the prayers and devotion, all those years of praying for Israel's consolation. It all culminated in this child. He saw the baby Jesus with the eye of faith. For Anna, for all those years of loneliness, the days and nights that she spent there in the temple, enduring patient people as well as those who could not hardly tolerate her, but it all led to this child. She looked at Jesus and beheld the baby with the eye of faith. Their whole lives came to this creative climax in that one moment. Had they been absent, they would have missed it. But they saw the day with the eye of faith, and they knew they belonged there to church. Such simple people history might have left famous, but instead they persevered. They attended to the promises and the proclamations celebrated there in God's house. They were faithful even to their old age. And they were present when the ultimate worship event of their life took place. And they saw Jesus with the eyes of faith. And through them, we get this clear picture ourselves of this baby. And then looking at Simeon and Anna with the eye of faith, we can now see them more clearly and see Jesus better. No longer nameless, anonymous, eccentric, or peculiar. History has recorded these two people as faithful. Their messages and even their names. Faith has a way of doing that to the simplest folks. And when you look at people